and we're reading my book, Thriving at Nature's Pace. You can get a copy online, please do. It's about the challenge of kind of climate change and what it means for us and what we can do about it in terms of actually some really quite radical thinking and thoughts about it. So I hope you join us and enjoy the conversation as we go. I'm reading it to my mum because my mum is 90 and she has got lost a lot of eyesight, so she can't read it herself. And I thought, why don't we share it with more people out there? So we hope you enjoy this. So we've been doing this for a couple of days now, and we're going to continue on with the chapter. We're still in the introduction, and this section of it is called Emergent Economics. Up to now, we've talked about how the situation really isn't quite working, and that the way in which we prescribe everything to work is not actually doing what we need. And so it goes back down to the economics and understanding what that is. So emergent economics. Emergent economics is economics at nature's pace. I just want to break a little bit about that nature's pace because it comes in the title, Thriving at Nature's Pace. And the idea is that we can't always determine the pace we want. That's actually quite important. So we may wish it to go some way, but very often when we do that, we create more harm along the way. Nature is rich because of its interconnections. Nothing in it is truly isolated. Emergent economics is likewise highly connected. It is rich in social capital. It is, in some ways, perfectly summed up in a scene in the TV drama Tracker. The drama is set on an island in the Philippines. In one episode, a typhoon strikes, and the main character fears he has lost everything. In the moment of his despair, he is told, "Pa familia ka," a Cebuano phrase meaning "you are family." The person saying it explains, "You are family. It's not possible to lose everything." Emergent economics sees modern humans as part of nature's family. Emergence is spontaneous, continuous, and self-organized. Emergent economics comes from the spontaneous interactions between people, businesses, and communities under the constraint of nature itself. Climate change is that constraint. People respond to each other and to the climate-changing environment to discover and establish new ways to thrive. Nature always thrives. It follows that modern humans, as part of nature's family, will equally always thrive. The important part of that part, I just want to say, is this part of under the constraints of nature itself. Most of the time, what we want to do is to go through the constraints of nature, to say we can do all that. And so when we actually place ourselves within nature and allow ourselves to emerge in our economy from that, we will find actually that everything then fits. Emergence does not need any overriding guiding policy to direct it. The guiding policy is all internal. This exemplifies the essence of Adam Smith's invisible hand. Economic transactions capture the balance of immediate demand and supply within an economy. They do not need any centralized guidance to take place. However, if the economy is overly transactional, then everything is reduced to individual and disconnected buy and sell events. People then focus only on what they can gain from each transaction and deprive the economy of any further purpose. The economy itself is taken for granted. At this point, governments typically step in. They regulate the economy to ensure it stays around. However, this encourages individuals to engage with the economy solely to make money for making money's sake. Governments are left to take on the role of looking after the broader purpose for everyone. The more this model progresses, the more the burden is shifted onto governments, and the more their roles have to expand. In this economic model, people depend on governments to thrive and become fearful of what may happen if governments fail. Without the support of governments, a different dynamic emerges. People pay attention to how their actions influence each other. Each transaction becomes more than a buy or a sell. It is part of a broader web of social interactions that determine if the person may be given the opportunity to interact again. If someone is likely to engage repeatedly within a community, even if it is with different people every time, she will have an interest to ensure the community will continue to accept him, her. That changes the nature of their transactions. Each becomes an opportunity for people to increase their own social capital. In this model, people selfishly look after each other to thrive. This is also the essence of more recent economic understanding, in particular Nobel laureate Elinor Ostrom's work, demonstrating that governance of the commons can and does emerge from people themselves. Commons are resources that classically are thought to be abused until exhausted because nobody specifically owns them. For example, for a fishing village, wild fish in the seas are commons. She demonstrated in her extensive research that people come together to establish the necessary economic structures to govern the commons so that the fish are in fact not exhausted. She found that rather than governance having to be imposed on people, it is better for the governance to emerge from the people. The idea of the commons has been further extended to natural resources which are globally shared. These are things like deep oceans, atmosphere, and even outer space. Climate change is a matter of managing global commons. In this case, the global commons is the planet's atmosphere and its capacity to buffer more greenhouse gases. It becomes a matter of governance to keep oil, gas, and coal in the ground. The current approach is to have an open-ended international treaty engaging 198 countries and regions in annual negotiations. They are then compelled to impose their decisions on their citizens. 8 billion people have to be manipulated into submission. It does not work because there's simply not enough money to pay for the buy-in for something so gargantuan to work. Elinor Ostrom's work suggests instead that people, businesses, and communities at the grassroots level are capable of discovering their own approaches. The issues are complex. This complexity has to be embraced. It needs the institutions to see their roles as allowing people to bring out the best in themselves. That's, by the way, is the point of Elinor Ostrom's work. It's that her idea is that institutions, their role is to allow people to bring out the best in themselves. Putting this into tangible quantities, the world uses 100 billion barrels equivalent of oil and gas and coal each year. If this is divided amongst its 8 billion inhabitants, each person is effectively responsible for 12.5 barrels each year. Over a lifetime of, say, 70 years, this comes to 875 barrels for each person. The world's oil, gas, and gas reserves stand at just below 50 years, with new oil and gas finds continuing at about half the rate of consumption. That puts the time to exhaustion, the existing reserves, at about 70 years. Coal reserves are more plentiful. They amount to closer to 100 years. Overall, the current population has the ability to determine if the world will use all its oil, gas, and coal to exhaustion or not. Under the current economic models, if someone voluntarily commits to use, say, a barrel of oil less each year into the future, that barrel of oil would still be produced. There is no ability for the person to prevent what they commit to not using from being extracted and sold. This applies to businesses, communities, and even governments. This is the central failure of the current framework. No one has the power over their own destiny. All control goes into the hands of conflicted governments engaged in the Game of Thrones. However, the good news is that this model is very costly to maintain. Many rich world governments are already failing over budgetary issues, and climate change will make this worse. Eventually, the approach will not be sustainable. It will bankrupt itself. The proposals in this book display pioneering examples to give people the power to make their own choices, including the critical choice of investing in not extracting oil, gas, and coal. There still has to be an economics. That means the choices cannot come for free. There has to be a price associated with them. That is how the value of nature's currency, minted by keeping oil and gas and coal in the ground, can be compared with the price of extracting them. So that's quite a heavy section there. And so the next section about nature's value, and I think we may have time to go through that, but any thoughts, Mom, before we do that? Or shall we go on?
Well, There's a lot to think about it.
There's a lot to think about it, absolutely.
Still can't understand how to solve the problem.
We still can't understand how to solve the problem, and that's right. And I think that's the point of this emergent approach, is to say that we don't have to understand how to solve the whole problem, but if we can find a way so that we can take a step and allow that step to open up more steps. Whereas at the moment, the governments are approaching it by saying, here is how we solve the whole problem. And that's proving to be too expensive. Every year, the demand is for even more money, the trillions of dollars that they demand that we need. And that money isn't there. So the whole way fails. So this is to go the other way and says, sometimes we solve things without having to know how to solve them when we start. But we have to be quite patient. We have to go at nature's pace rather than at our pace. So I think Mum again has pointed to right at the problem.
So you can't solve the problem in the end.
Well, we don't know, but we think that people can come together and they may be able to solve that problem. So nature's value. Let's go on a little bit. People do see value in not using up resources. Art, for example, is more valuable when the paint is not scraped off the canvas and the canvas burnt. The Mona Lisa is valuable precisely because the paint is not scraped off. Masterpieces create value by inspiring others to push the limit of what they are capable of achieving. Leonardo da Vinci's work inspires engineers, Escher's wood carvings inspires DNA nanotechnologies. This timeless inspirational value is intrinsic to the piece. Destroying the art would destroy this value. Oil, gas, and coal are nature's masterpieces. They can inspire by staying in the ground. They can be more valuable through the innovations that they inspire. It is a matter of imagination, and it is a matter of respect for the stories of their creation. That includes the story of climate change itself. Innovations beget innovations. This goes back to the examples of how oil, gas, and coal can be a source of financing by keeping them in the ground. The missing piece is the ability of ordinary people, businesses, and communities to buy the oil, gas, and coal while they are still in the ground. Having this will turn a possibility into an actual reality. That then opens up new roles for governments and other oil, gas, and coal owners and producers. They can sell the ownership of the oil, gas, and coal that they have no plan to extract for 5, 10, or even further years ahead. This money can become the climate financing that governments, businesses, and communities are calling for. And to make it accessible to ordinary people, businesses, and communities, they can sell the oil, gas, and coal 1 barrel equivalent at a time. The attraction of this is that it is entirely autonomous and finances itself. It does not need government money from governments. The fear may be that people will not do this. Then the situation is simply unchanged from the status quo. The downside is that the world continues as it does on its current path, uses oil, gas, and coal to their exhaustion, and climate change will keep worsening to bankrupt the modern economy. Emergences happen all the time in nature. Starlings, for example, go from flying in solitary straight lines to flying in a murmuration to perform graceful collective aerial displays. These murmurations are spontaneous emergences. Similarly, monarch butterflies swarm to migrate from North America to Mexico. The butterflies have no WhatsApp to pre-agree on the time and date. They fill the skies spontaneously. Even trading markets emerge spontaneously. Regulators are only needed when the political hierarchy feels they want to control them. Traditional economic theory has no place for emergence. Even though it's suggested by the term invisible hand, the term itself still includes the word hand. Modern economies operate in a hierarchical mentality. Policy determines how they should function, lobbyists push against the policies, and entrepreneurs seek ways to avoid. In this hierarchical economy, consumers are simply there to consume. They don't choose to consume, they are driven by the price. It's as if people are mindless robots. If the price is below some equilibrium point, they will consume. If it is above some equilibrium point, they will not consume. A theory founded on such naive presumptions about what drives humanity to thrive makes it necessary to have policymakers. In an emergent economy, the individual agents have complex motivations, they have individual purposes, they have meaning in their lives, they have social interactions, they have things that give them joy. All these things come into their decision making. They are not motivated by price alone. They are like an individual starling in a murmuration. There is no leader to direct the aerial display, yet the murmuration is a spectacular performance. This comes from each individual starling being aware of the movements of others. It's how a collective direction of travel emerges for the whole. It is like a jazz improvisation. Conducted music and jazz improvisations are both music. Yet left without a conductor, musicians play together in calls and responses to each other. The resulting music is an emergence of their individual genius. They are the experts, and the music that arises has a unique sparkle and life of its own. This social richness of emergence contrasts with the loneliness of the existing economics, when nature has lost its grace. In the failing extractive economy, every time someone gains, something is exploited. This can be a natural resource, a person, or even a whole community. Whichever it is that is exploited, it is another thread in the ever-thinning social fabric. In this existing economy, when exploitable resources are no longer available, people lose more than they gain. Emergent economics is inherently social. It comes because of people's self-interest includes interest in the welfare of those around them. People communicate with others not just via money. It becomes a higher context. Other means of communications are important. Social interactions matter. The interactions cannot be reduced into a single price point on an academic demand-supply curve. It is the opposite. Intent and intentions matter as much, if not more, than the transactions. Even when two people who do not agree and there is no transaction, the interaction is still valuable to both. Each person contributes through their own uniqueness to create social richness. It is jazz. It comes about through the connections each person makes with others and with nature. The whole emerges from this as something that is distinct and more than simply the random collection of the parts. This whole becomes part of the nature with a capital N, and the experience of this whole is joyful. So that's, I don't know if that helps a bit, Mum, but the idea is that by coming together in our way, we can find our way through. And it's because when we interact with each other that we actually discover how we can be with each other. And so if climate change is a problem for everyone, then we are going to find the answer not by someone saying this is the answer, but by each of us actually interacting with each other to find out what it is that we need for ourselves and what others need for them. So that's the idea of an emergent approach towards it. So there is no answer in the sense that there is no one answer. One person is going to say this is the answer that 8 billion people have to use. But everybody together will contribute towards that answer. You're thinking, Mum?
Well, with the modern world, we invent a lot of invention, not like the olden days. Now, everything is modern. We need more. You said that we can keep the gas, but actually we are spending more gas.
Yes.
Just like you got a lot of aeroplanes flying in the sky every day. They need the gas.
They do.
That is a lot of supply.
Yes, and that is the question. How do we find out whether we actually need the gas?
But you can't substitute with any other thing, but the plane need it.
That's right, and I think that's the part where everybody points to, which is that our world demands it. But what climate change is doing, it is bankrupting the world. So costs are going to go up, and we're going to find that there will be more disruptions.
But there are a lot of people traveling. You can't stop people traveling.
Well, the climate can, and that's already happening. So there have been more incidences where airports are closed from storms and those things. And the ultimate part about listening to what nature and the nature's constraints is that they are quite powerful. So this year, within our family, my daughter, our siblings, many people have had disruptions in their travels where they could not go, and it has cost them money as a result. And that's the part of this. We want it so that we can do this, and we say we can't. But at the end of the day, our costs are going to increase because of climate change. And there will come a point when the costs are not bearable anymore. And we tend to think it won't come. This book is talking about the point where actually, what if it does come? And you can't actually afford all of those things. The disruptions are too great. Jamaica just got hit by a big hurricane. Vietnam, Philippines have been hit by flooding and storms, and Hong Kong as well. And places have had lots of landslides and those things. The governments have to repair all of those things. That'll cost a lot of money along there. The taxes will go up to try and pay for it. That means that there'll be less money for us to do the things that we want. And so even if it were not for, say, an airport being closed by a storm, disrupting traffic all over the world, because today's airports are all connected, we are still going to find that actually we're going to feel the effect of climate change in our wallets. So that's the thing that ultimately is going to stop us from doing what we want.
So there's no way to prevent the climate change.
There's no way to prevent it anymore, because it's like contractions for giving birth. They've started. So it's going to give birth. The question is, what do you want to give birth to? And so this is about thinking beyond thinking about just trying to stop it, because we can't, it's too late for thinking about that. When we look at the weather and the changes we have seen in it, and the storms we've been having, and the droughts, and they have hurt the farmers, and they have hurt our kind of, people wanting to go to different places, or schools being shut, and things of that kind. And that is not going to stop. We can prevent it from getting very much worse. But that requires us to think about who is really going to stop it. Is it going to be us, or do we hope that someone else somehow will? Yeah? Final words, Mum?
It can never be solved, the problem.
It can never be solved. Well, that may be the case, but we can make steps towards it. And I think that's the whole nature of all of this. We make our steps. And that's the thing, we need trust and we need faith, because that's where the faith comes. And that's where emergent economics is different, because it is grounded in a faith in nature. It is not about us solving the problems, it is about us having faith in nature so that we can be one with nature.
So we have to believe in God.
Yeah, we may well have to believe in God. I do. And many people feel that they have a spiritual connection, a sense that there is some purpose that they are a part of.
Yeah.
So I think that is important, and that is what emergent economics is about. It brings that up to be the driving force to the economy rather than our idea of what it is that we must do. So I'm really glad you brought that. I think that's quite right, because without that sense that there is some purpose, that nature has that purpose in that way, and we are part of it, then we think we have to solve every problem, and we don't know how to solve all the problems. So, okay, let's finish here.
Yeah.
So, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thriving at Nature's Pace. You can get it online. Hope you do. Join us. Today is Thursday.
No, Thursday.
So tomorrow I have a show called The Shit Show, also live on YouTube with Andrea Edwards and Joe Augustine and Richard Bucelato. Please join on to that. So there'll be no reading tomorrow, but we'll start again on Monday. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.